So I recently bought the Octatrack Mark II from Electron, in the hopes of using it as the sort of central hub, main brain of my DAW-less live electronic setup. I'm using it in conjunction with a handful of analog synth modules. I have two of them set up here, the Argon 8 and the Minotaur. Um, for all intents and purposes, it was working really well to control them. I really had no qualms. At first, I was worried about the lack of MIDI polyphony that the Octatrack could send out, but I've been able to use two tracks for the one polysynth that I've had to send 8 notes, and it's been fine. But the issue that I started to run into as I made longer arrangements was that, from all I can tell, there's no easy way to send program change messages from the Octatrack. And I was racking my head and doing research online, trying to figure out a convenient way to do this, and I really couldn't. That is until I got the Bomebox from Boom Software. Using this, I have been able to send MIDI notes on a unused MIDI channel from the Octatrack and convert those notes into program change messages. And I figured I would make a video sort of explaining how to do this, in the hopes that somebody else struggling with the same problem might be able to learn from it. Okay, so first off, I will just kind of give a brief overview of how everything is connected here and how my Octatrack project is set up. So the Octatrack is running MIDI out into the Bomebox, which is then going over here to an off-screen MIDI splitter. The MIDI splitter is then splitting MIDI out into the two synthesizers, each running mono audio into the Octatrack, which is working as a mixer, and then going out into my actual mixer and into the computer. So the Argon 8, the Argon 8, excuse me, is on channel 15 here. And the Minotaur is over on channel 1. So each of those is going into a through machine and basically an audio track on the Octatrack, into inputs A and C here. And then over on track 8, we have a MIDI channel that's going to be sending the program changes. Okay, so what we need to do now that the Bomebox is connected to the rig, well, there's a couple of steps. One thing that you need to do is go to the Boom website. You need to make an account. You need to download the Boom Translator Pro software. There is a free version that you can use that allows you to test out the code that you want to try, and you can just plug a MIDI cord into your computer and out from your computer and rig it up to your synths, and you can kind of like make sure it's going to do what you want it to do. Of course, there's like a million things that you can code besides this, so you might want to test that. And the free software allows you to do that. However, the free software doesn't allow you to put the code onto the box. So if you want to use the Bomebox, you basically have to pay. It's like $60 for the software to get yourself situated with that. Cool. So you've got the software. I already have an account. The next thing that you need to do is you have to hit the Wi-Fi button on the side of the Bomebox, and it's going to send out like an actual Wi-Fi signal that you are going to want to connect to on your computer. Let's see, I'm hitting the button now, so it'll pop up. Give it a second. Turn my Wi-Fi off and on. That helped earlier. Cool, and it's automatically connected. Down here I have the configuration URL. It's this. It's the same for everyone. It's this 192 dot blah blah blah. You're gonna go there. It's gonna ask you to log on. I'm already saved in there. Cool. So if you just want to make sure your rig is set up, you're going to want to go to MIDI routes, and you're going to want to route the DIN to the DIN. Like, you actually have to route the in to the out port of the MIDI in order to transmit MIDI through the box. That kind of messed me up for a while earlier, so just a heads up. But now that we're set up, we'll go back to the MIDI Translator software. So I'm going to start a new project just to kind of show you what I had to do to get these program changes sent. So you're going to create, or I'm sorry, first you're going to go to MIDI routing. So this is the first thing that you need to do here. I already have it set up, but if you don't, you need to go to create alias. You need to type in Bomebox DIN, just like that, because that's how the translator software is going to understand it. You're going to go down to Bomebox Midi Translator 1, and you want to do that for the in and the out. And that's going to give you this Bomebox DIN down here, and that's really important because you won't be able to send anything if you don't have that. So we'll just connect these. I'm not entirely sure how they work, but I found that doing that allows it to go through. So cool. So we're going to make our first line of like code. Hit add translator here. We'll just call this Argon 8M. And we'll call this 499 because that is the first initialized patch on the synth. Cool. So here's how I'm doing it. I showed you before that I have that track 8 created. And on the track 8, the MIDI channel that I'm using is MIDI channel 8. So we'll go MIDI channel 8. And then we're just going to want to go. Doesn't really matter what you use on that track because I mean, at least it doesn't for me because I'm not using track 8 to control any synth. If you wanted to use track 8 to control a synth as well, you could go all the way up to G9. I mean, I did that anyway, just in case down the line I wanted to. But yeah, we'll set it up to note G9, and then we have velocity settings. We'll start it on 127. So this is basically, you know, telling the code, all right, whenever you get a note on message on channel 8 for note G9 at 127 velocity, you're going to do X, and X is what we're going to set down here in the outgoing. So we'll go MIDI message, program change, and now the Argon 8 is set up to channel 15, so we'll select 15. And the program is 99. Now the Argon 8 has, you know, 400 settings, and those are 4 banks. So down the line, I'm going to have to, I imagine, do a one of these bank change messages, and I guess I'll have to set that up on another track or something. But right now I'm just, you know, until I run out of the 99 in bank 4, just sending the program change 99 will do. Cool. We'll add one more for the Moog Minotaur. And the Minotaur just has one bank of 127, I believe. And I'm not worried about the factory patches, so we're just going to do, it's on channel 4. We'll pick F#9, the next note. And just for the sake of consistency, we'll put 127 for this as well. Even though we're starting the other way on the Minotaur, we're going to start on 1 on the outgoing. I think just having them all from 127 backwards is the way to do it. For me, at least. You might find, your setup works a little differently. Cool. So MIDI message, program change. That's going to be channel 4. Oh, I'm sorry. And this is channel 8 up here because that's where it's coming from. Going to channel 4 because I'm starting from the beginning on the Minotaur. We got program 1 here. Cool. This up here doesn't really matter too much, but depending on what you're doing, it might matter. Swallow MIDI message will, if you for some reason wanted this F#9 to go and actually play on the synth that you're sending it to, as well as having the program changed, you could uncheck that. Doesn't really matter for what we're doing. Cool. So we're going to save that. We'll call this test 2 because the one that I've been working on is test 1. We're going to go back to the BOM web configuration. Cool. So now we're going to go MIDI Translator, browse. We're going to find that test 2 right here. Upload. Now it's in the bank of translator projects that have been uploaded. We want to go to test 2, select. We'll close the one that's on there right now, test 1. Okay, and then we'll hit select on test 2, and now it should be loaded up to the Bomebox. So now I will show you what to do on the Octatrack to send these program changes now that we have the translating code programmed to the box. Okay, so now that we have the Bomebox programmed with the translator code, we are going to want to go here under our MIDI track 8. All right, let's just say, so we have this 2-bar passage here. Let's say on the first note of the 2nd bar passage, we want to change to program changes 99, 499, and 1 on the Argon and the Minotaur respectively. So we have the first step here. We are going to set a trig for G9, and if you will remember, G9 was the Argon, so we're going to set the velocity to 127, which was the velocity that we set on the code to trigger the line, and then we should be good to go on that. That should change the Argon when it triggers that trig. On track 7, we're also going to have it set to track 8. And there are, I imagine, like a lot of ways to play around with this, and I'm going to play around with it in the future, because ideally I wouldn't like to have all these MIDI tracks taken up with different program changes for each device. You might need to play around in your arrangement so that the program change falls when the sound of the device is not playing, because you can only really send, as far as I can tell, the program change when you can only send one on a track to a device at a time, because you can't send 2 trigs at the same time. I mean, I guess if you played like a chord, you could do it that way. Like if you sent G9 and then went -1, but that would only work if you knew exactly. Like you would need to know that all of the devices in that program would have to be changed to the same velocity. So I don't know, I guess it could work, but it could also get really complicated really quick. So for our purposes right now, I am on track 8. I got G9 127 is going to trigger that patch 499 to start, and then on track 7 on the same step, we're going to go F#9 and that same velocity 127. And then that should be all we need to do to trigger those program changes. So let's see. I don't have any sound programmed right now. This is just, for demonstration purposes. So, boom, and there you go. The argon lighting up there signaled that the patch changed. The Minotaur doesn't have a screen, but if you had something going, you'd be able to hear that the patch was changing. And yeah, so that is how you change the patches using the Bomebox. The other thing that is pretty significant and was kind of something that I needed to figure out was how, when you have an arrangement playing, it's kind of a pain to have to not use that step, especially if it's the first step in a pattern. You kind of want your chord to hit right on that step or your, bass line or lead line, whatever it is. So the workaround for that works pretty well is if you want to, let's say we have a chord here. I don't know what's programmed in there. That's something kind of weird. Boop. All right, I don't know, whatever. So if you just go to your trig, hit the right arrow a little bit for the micro timing, and you put it just a little bit forward. I bet if you made the program change message even shorter, you could kind of squeeze it tighter. But yeah, then you'll be able to play that chord on the same step as the program change. Cool. Yeah, that's about it. I hope that was helpful. I know I found it really helpful. The Bomebox and the software are not cheap necessarily, but it's a pretty significant flaw in the Octatrack that you can't send program changes, and especially for my purpose, using it as the heart of a live rig, that it was like so significant. I almost thought about selling the Octatrack and going with like an MPC 1000 or something, but by that point I had invested the time to kind of get over the learning curve, and I just didn't feel like doing that with another device. And especially with how well the Octatrack pairs with the analog rhythm that I also have. Yeah, all right, anyway, like I said, hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions about this sort of thing. I'd be happy to try to work it out. And if you have an Octatrack and you're thinking about getting a Bomebox and you want to want somebody who has them both to test it out for you, I'd be happy to help. Cool. Well, thanks, and have a nice day, everybody.